Good morning friends, welcome back to Parnika Tutorials. In this video, I want to discuss various myths in data science. Why these myths are not correct also I will discuss. Few myths I will tell you. The first myth is that machine does everything. Then the second myth is that always the data science is successful and data science always require deep learning and machine learning. These are the few myths are there in related to the data science. These myths are not correct. Why they are not correct? I will discuss in this video. So I request everyone to watch the complete video for better understanding. First let me discuss the first myth. The machine does everything. Now, if you look at the first myth, what it is saying, machine does everything. As a human, we no need to do anything, or the programmer, we no need to do anything. Now, what are the tasks involved in the data science? One is the collection of data or data collection, and then data storing. And the third task is that processing, and then we have the data description and then modeling of the data. These are the various tasks involved in the data science. Now let me take a simple example. I want to design a model, okay, to predict a given chest x-ray image is a COVID or not. Now in this case, whether the machine will collect the data or the human will collect the data. Now the human need to find the sources from where he has to collect the chest x-ray images and what kind of data he has to collect. Also the programmer or the data scientist will look at it. One is that what kind of data is required for a specific task. Suppose let's take that I want to predict the share market price of the particular share. Then I need to collect the data related to the shares, old data related to the shares. So depend on the task, the data scientist will look what kind of data he has to collect, then where to collect and how much data he has to collect. Okay, and he suppose if the data is available in various social media platforms or various websites, he has to write the scripts to collect those data. So the data scientist, he is doing everything. He is finding what kind of data, where to collect, and he is writing the scripts, all these things. Now the machine, what it is doing, what the machine is doing in this scenario is that it is executing those programs, or you are writing the scripts, that scripts it is executing. It is because suppose let's take that from the social media websites, you need to collect the data. So the data scientist is writing the program to collect the data, the machine is just executing those programs. Okay, similarly collecting the data, what kind of scheme you have to use, whether it is a structured data, whether it is an unstructured data, semi-structured data. If it is a structured data, what kind of scheme you have to use, all these things the data scientist only is doing it. And where you need to store, all these things the data scientist is doing. Now what the machine is doing in this case, it is giving the storage space for you. Okay, the machine is just giving the storage space to store the data, but the remaining things the data scientist is only doing. And then coming to the processing of data, once you got the data, if it is noisy data, you need to eliminate the noise from the data. If there are outliers are there, you have to remove those outliers. Now who is doing all these things? The data scientist is only doing it. If there is any missing values in the data scientist has to do. Similarly, he has to do the scaling of the features, and similarly standardization, normalization, all these things the data scientist is doing. Now what the machine is doing in this case, the machine is just executing the program. Suppose if you have a large amount of data, now for each one you no need to compute the normalization, because if the data scientist start doing the things, then it will take a lot of time. So he will write the scripts to do that one. So machine will execute the scripts or the program, okay, to process the data. Now coming to the describing the data. Now the data scientist will look at the data and he will say whether he should use the scatter plots, whether he used to use the bar chart, whether he has to use the histograms, how he has to describe the data. All these things the data scientist is doing it. Now what the machine is doing, it is again executing those scripts to look at the data and then to represent them in the bar charts, all these things. But which one we have to use. All these things is decided by the data scientist only. So here also the machine is just executing those programs. Now modeling of the data. Now you want to model the data. So what you have to do, suppose you have y is equal to f of x. Now, as a data scientist, you need to estimate this function f using the data and the learning algorithms. Then, once you given the new x, means new input if you're given, it has to predict the output. Now, in this estimating of the function in the deep learning various models, you need to estimate the parameters. Am I right? The weights you need to do it, because with the in the forward processing, am I right, you will get the loss. Then in the back propagation you will update the weights, like we will use the gradient descent with back propagation, and we have the atom and atom. All these things we will use to update the weights and estimate the function. Am I right or wrong? Now here what the machine is doing, now estimating the parameters cannot be done by the human, because mathematically if you do it, it will take a lot of time. So we will use the machine which will help us to estimate the parameters, because we have a large amount of data. Estimating the parameters by the data scientist will take a lot of time. So he will write the things to so that the machine will estimate the parameters. Then you will find the function. Once you given the new input, it has to predict the output. So if you look at, the data scientist is only involved most of the time in the collection of data, storing of the data, processing of the data, describing the data, and modeling of the data. The data scientist only involved, where the machine is just executing the programs or estimating the parameters or providing the storage space. So this myth is wrong, because it says that machine does everything, but lot of task is involved by the data scientist only. So I say that this myth is wrong. Now let me discuss the next few myths related to the data scientist. The next myth is that data science is always successful. This is the next one. Data science is always successful. This is what the people will think. It is not always successful. Why it is not always successful? Now, what is the data science? You have large amount of data. If you have large amount of data, or if you have the data, always it is not successful. Why? Let's take that the first one is that the data is irrelevant. Meaning is that you want to predict the estimates of some company called X. You want to predict the share value or the share price for the next few days of the company X. But now you have the data related to the company Y. Now using the share values of the Y company, can you predict the stocks of the X? You cannot do it. So if the data is irrelevant, similarly let's take that you want to find whether a patient is COVID or not. Instead of just X-ray images, you have the hand X-ray images or the leg X-ray images. Can you do it? No, you cannot do it. So if the data is irrelevant, then it is not successful. And another thing is that if the data is very noisy, from that noisy data we are not able to predict anything, then also the data science is not successful. You have a data, but the data is very noisy, then also it is not successful. And the third one is that there are no proper insights in the data, because you want to find the insights. So these insights are not proper. Okay, if even the insights are not proper, then also the data science is not successful. Am I right? Using those, suppose you got some insights, with those insights you are not able to predict the things, then also it is not useful. Even let's take that you have very less amount of data. Even the less amount of data also may create the issue. Am I right? So always the data science is not successful. Why it is there? If you have less amount of data, and whatever the data you have, with those data you are not able to find any insights, or if the data is very noisy, the data is irrelevant, then the data science is not successful. So this is the second myth about the data science. I hope you have understood why this myth is not correct. Now let me talk about the third myth. Always they'll say that data science always requires deep learning techniques, always requires machine learning and deep learning techniques. This is what the people will say that. But when we discussed about the modeling of the data, we have discussed that we have statistical modeling and algorithmic model. In the algorithmic modeling only we have discussed about the machine learning and deep learning because they are the data hungry models. The deep learning models are the data hungry models. Okay. Now remember one thing, using the data science, with the help of the statistical modeling also we can predict the things. Suppose let's take that I have very less number of features. Suppose let's take that I have a feature about whether it is a one bedroom apartment or a two bedroom apartment or a three bedroom apartment. With this data, now I want to predict the rent of that apartment. I can do it with the help of the statistical modeling. Am I right or wrong? Is it clear? Using the linear regression, I can do it. Why? I will use y is equal to mx plus c, where y is the dependent variable and x is the independent variable. Similarly, let's take that I have three features, x1, x2, x3. Then I can use a y function called y is equal to m1 x1 plus m2 x2 plus m3 x3 plus c. I can use that one and I can predict the things. Now, similarly, let's take that I have a data related to the students who secured the marks related to the particular subject. Now, if I have that small data, meaning is that the students marks are there. Suppose let's take that I'm started teaching operating system course to the 120 students. Now these 120 students, mid exam marks, assignment marks, project marks, end semester marks, these marks are there, and finally I computed the total marks. Now using this data also I can estimate the things like how many students got the S grade, how many students got the A grade, how many students got the B grade, or how many students previously got good marks in other subjects such as DBMS or computer organization, why their performance is poor in the operating system course. All these things we can do using the statistical modeling. So don't think that always data science requires the machine learning and deep learning techniques. So these three myths related to machine does everything, data science always requires machine learning and deep learning, and data science is always successful, they are not always correct. So this is what I want to say about the myths of data science. I hope you have understood this concept. If you still have any doubts related to this concept, feel free to ask me in the comment section. I will try to clear your doubts as early as possible. Thank you for watching the complete video. Have a nice day.